So this is the Lenovo Legion Pro 7i. This is the model with the RTX 4070. And I was looking at the price of this, and it's $3,000 here in Canada. Now that sounds very expensive. It's obviously very expensive, but I was thinking about a week ago when I reviewed the Galaxy Book 3 Ultra, that laptop cost $3,500 Canadian, which only comes with an RTX 4050, and I just thought how bad of a deal that was. Now granted, I understand that the 40 series has increased prices of laptops across the board, which is weird because we're in a time right now where PC sales are not too hot. You'd think that these companies would want to keep the prices as low as possible so that they can move as many units as possible. But the weird thing is that this Pro 7i loses features that the previous model had last year. Like, it doesn't come with a fingerprint scanner. It has a plastic touchpad. There's other little things like less RGB. But I think the reason why Lenovo did it is to kind of balance the costs. And even though these things are still expensive, by removing those little things from the laptop, they're still able to offer a Pro model that is reasonably priced compared to other laptops in this category. Now, it's still a good laptop. Like, it's still a very good laptop. The design is very clean, not too gamery. It has a minimalistic vibe with the Legion logo on the right-hand side. It does not light up. You have the Lenovo logo back here. It's a fairly heavy laptop. I love the fact that Lenovo continues to stick to this design with the majority of the ports at the back. It just allows you to keep your desk a lot cleaner by having those cables away from you. There are some ports on the side though. For example, you have a Thunderbolt 4 port, you have a USB-A port, and then on the other side, you have your camera privacy shutter, your combo audio jack, and another USB-A port. On the back, you have the majority of ports, which you have your power connector. It comes with a 300 watt brick. It's a GAN charger, but it's still a pretty big GAN charger. There's better GAN chargers out there that are smaller. 2 more USB-A ports. HDMI, you have a Type-C port. This is not Thunderbolt 4. And of course, you have your RJ45 jack. Like, most of it's metal. You know, you got a top metal lid. You have a metal bottom. There's like feet to keep the laptop off the table so that air can flow a little bit better. But once you open it up, and you can do so easily with one hand since you have a reversed notch for the camera, it allows you to open it up with one hand. And of course, as a typical Legion, you can put the display almost 180 degrees flat. But this is where things get a little interesting. Like, this deck is plastic. And I feel like if you're calling your laptop Pro, it should be completely aluminum. The touchpad though, this is plastic. Like, this is kind of unexcusable for a Pro laptop. Like, this should be a glass touchpad. I'm not the biggest fan of this. It's very squishy in the middle. It's not nearly as accurate as a proper touchpad you'd find on other laptops. The keyboard experience is always top notch. Like, I do like Lenovo's keyboards. They tend to have very good spacing between the keys. There's a good amount of click. This is what it sounds like. And of course, if you prefer, you have that numerical pad on the right-hand side. Unfortunately, that makes the touchpad off-centered. I know some of you don't like that, but that's just the way it is if you put a numerical keypad on your laptop. Keyboard flex, there's a little bit, but it's nothing too concerning. The hinges are nice and solid. Like, there's a little bit of wobble, but it stops pretty quickly. Like, if you're typing on this guy, this screen isn't moving. Whereas on some other laptops with poorly made hinges, the screen will wobble all over the place and sometimes smack you unconscious. Sticker placement is out of control. I don't even want to talk about it because I'm so depressed looking at the amount of stickers we have on the laptop. Now, this 16:10 display has been used for the past couple of years on previous Legion 5 Pros. It's a good display. It has a high refresh rate of 240 Hertz. You can change it to 60 if you want to save battery life. There's an overdrive option. It's matte, so it doesn't pick up any nasty reflections from light sources, especially if you have this outdoors or near a window, it's not going to bother you. It's not touch, obviously. It doesn't have the same vibrant effect that a glass panel would have, but it's a great display for gaming and content consumption. If you're doing any sort of design work on this, the color gamut is pretty good. It's not the best, but it's good enough. But the color accuracy is more than adequate. So this is what the webcam looks like. It shoots at 1080p 30 frames per second. Let me know how the microphone sounds. It looks okay based on what I'm looking at, but you guys let me know in the comments below. Now I want to go back to the keyboard for a second because some of Lenovo's shortcuts can be a bit confusing. Like, you have brightness symbols all over the keyboard. So for example, On the arrow keys over here, you have two brightness indicators, and this basically turns up the brightness for your RGB. But then you also have brightness indicators on the space bar. This allows you to cycle through different RGB profiles that you have set up on your computer. So for example, I don't have anything set up on number 5, so the RGB goes off, but if I put it back on, let's say, number 2, the keyboard lights up to a nice blue. And of course, if you want to change the brightness of the display, all you have to do is hit Function F5 or F6, and this will increase or decrease the brightness of the display. Now, performance is where things get very interesting because this is the RTX 4070 model. It does come with an i9-13900HX processor, 16-inch display, and of course, a 1TB NVMe SSD. But if you pay $2280, you can save a little bit of money and just get it with 512 gigabytes of storage instead. Now look, it holds its own. That's what Lenovo's good at, consistency, and it really does give a lot of other laptops a run for their money. When it came to single core clock speeds, it was right up there against the Razer Blade 18, even beating it out when it came to multi-core speeds, which I find truly impressive considering that the Blade 18 is a much bigger laptop, a bigger chassis so that cooling can perform better. When it comes to actual creative applications like Photoshop, After Effects, or Premiere Pro, again, it was trading blows with bigger chassis made laptops, and I found that to be quite remarkable. If you're using this for gaming, it obviously performs very well. The RTX 4070 I know doesn't have the best name right now because it feels pretty much the same regardless of whether you buy a thinner laptop with a 4070 or a thicker one. My suggestion to you is that the performance on this is good for a 4070, but I still feel like if you're buying a 40 series card, you should at least buy a 4080. And of course, if you can afford it, get the 4090. I know that's hard to say because these laptops are ridiculously expensive. I just feel like the bang for your buck on a 4070 these days is really hard to justify, but it does perform well. Heat management on this was an interesting experience. Like the keyboard deck would never get too hot. It could get warm, but nothing to worry about. But CPU average temperatures would go up to 100 quickly, then power throttle, and it would usually stay between 85 and 90. This is a little bit higher than I'd like to see, but it's not concerning at all. The weird thing though was that the average core clock speeds had a little bit of an anomaly. Like a little bit halfway through the test, it kind of dropped to the lower 2000s, then went back up. I did the test again to see if this is something that can be replicated. It wasn't, so I'm gonna rule this out as a glitch in my test, but overall, the CPU core average clock speeds were pretty consistent throughout. Fan noise is what you'd expect from a gaming laptop. It can get loud, around 56 decibels, which is, it's not the loudest. Some gaming laptops tend to go to 60. This is staying around 56. Obviously, it's very, very noticeable. But if you want to lower it because you don't like the fan noise and you're okay dropping a bit of performance, you can put it on balanced or silent mode. Now, if you opt for the RTX 4070 model, you're not getting a vapor chamber cooler. I guess they feel because the RTX 4070 doesn't run as hot as the 4080 or 4090, they just didn't need it. Like, don't get me wrong, these fans are nice and big and there's a lot of copper running back and forth. So obviously it's doing its job. They even have liquid metal on both the CPU and GPU. You do have 2 slots for drives. This one on the left is empty, so you can put something here in the future, but this one is populated at the moment, and you do get really good read and write speeds. Battery is 98 watt hours, and look, it's not gonna get you through the entire day, but it actually did pretty well for a gaming laptop. Swappable Wi-Fi 6E card, and then you have 2 sticks of RAM, upgradable to 64, but right now I have 32. I'll be honest with you, I don't like the fact that they cut some corners and put on a plastic touchpad, got rid of the fingerprint scanner, reduced the RGB, and all these other little things. It takes away the idea of this being a pro laptop and just kind of makes this a regular 7i. But at the end of the day, it's still a good laptop. Like, especially when you compare it to other competing products on the market, it's priced fairly for 40 series laptops. It's still expensive, but it's not the most expensive 4070 laptop. And quite frankly, even punches above when you compare it to other laptops with bigger chassis. Now, I do think you should probably buy one with a 4080 or 4090 instead. You'll get more value for the price. But if you're looking at the 4070 model, the Legion Pro 7i still offers a fantastic experience, even with some of the corners that they decided to cut. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section down below. If you like the video, feel free to like it. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.